If you want financial freedom, time freedom, and want to leave a legacy for generations to come, you probably have heard real estate investing is the place to do that. How do you get started? What do you have to do? When's the right time? If you are looking for those answers, you've come to the right place. My name is Kyle Stanley, and this is Fearless Flipping. My mission is to help you learn this business and conquer real estate investing. We have got a very special week, a special guest, and a special topic here today on Fearless Flipping with Michael Zuber. If you haven't heard of Michael Zuber, make sure to Google One Rental at a Time. You'll find his YouTube channel, his podcast, his book, his Facebook, everything. It's all awesome. It's all amazing stuff. And before we get into that, make sure you comment on this video. If you're listening on the podcast, subscribe to the podcast, review our podcast, and like our videos, like our information here on the YouTube channel. Make sure you're subscribed to that too. Just do it all. So let's get into it though with Michael Zuber, who has 180 doors under his wings with a portfolio. He's done this over 15 years. I'm going to let him tell his story, but I'm also going to let him tell you if he thinks a crash or correction is inevitable and coming up. Let's take it away. Michael Zuber, we are here in the studio with the one and only, and if you haven't already seen our YouTube show that we did with the Fearless Flip and Michael talking about pride of ownership, I really encourage you to watch that. If you're listening on the podcast right now, go to YouTube, subscribe to Fearless Flipping, and subscribe to Michael's YouTube channel as well, which is One Rental at a Time. And the number one thing I always love to start off with is, what is your most interesting or maybe craziest, weirdest real estate story?
Wow, so I think the craziest story actually has to be the first property we ever bought. We did everything right, and it didn't work out.
Okay.
So, we are buy and hold, right? So we're landlords, and, we live in the Bay Area. So we purchased our first property on Norris Drive about 15 years ago, and we did credit checks and reference checks and background checks and all of that, but unfortunately the couple broke up after moving in. And hence, I knew what an eviction was like right out of the gate.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, the things that you don't even think about that you have to worry about breakups. All right. So let's talk about your grind in this real estate investing world. You've been doing it for over 15 years now. Just kind of take us through your story if you can.
Yeah. So real quick, the story begins in 2003. After, for so many people, begins with Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It kind of shook me on my 30th birthday, and I was like, what are you doing? You're working and you're making good income, but you have nothing. And if you don't wise up, you're going to be working forever, which never really excited me. So I read that book 5 times in a row and learned that buy and hold rentals was the place that I could do it. I was never going to create a company. I wasn't an athlete, wasn't an actor or anything. So this was my way. And we just did one rental at a time. So we tried to buy one a year, and eventually that morphed into doing 1031 exchanges and a lot more. But that was the beginning.
That's awesome. So I know that one rental at a time is your thing, and I want to just really encourage anyone that's listening or watching this right now, go to Michael's YouTube channel. You will learn the process of what one rental at a time means. It's an amazing channel. You're uploading information daily on there, which is awesome. And that's the freedom that you have now. You get to focus on that. So that's wonderful. But what I really want to focus on right now is maybe some of the strategies that are current today. And so just going back to that mindset of the crash, there's a lot of people talking about that coming around again.
Yeah.
So can you just talk to our audience about what was it like going through a crash?
Sure.
Did you survive or did you thrive? I just want to hear all of that.
Yeah, so we'll talk about, we'll say the crash just for the video here was 2007. We'll just call it date, right? Call it July 2007. What we did in 2006 is what people should be doing today is we went to lots of real estate meetups and all of that. And we could go there confidently and say we owned between 5 and 7 houses, which is what we owned about that time. But we actually listened to a gentleman named Bruce Norris, who's out of Southern California, who puts out, he predicts the future. And one of the things that he talks a lot about is this thing called the affordability index, which really became our North Star. Where Fresno was when we were starting was at 40, which means that roughly 4 out of 10 people could buy the average house with an average down payment. It got to as low as 11. And he talks about anything below 20 being a red flag, right? Or at least a yellow flag, 15 being a red flag. So we knew something was wrong. Plus, what I bought for 107 on Norris Drive was now worth 260, but the rent never changed. And my brain, my mathematical brain, wouldn't let me buy that next property. So we had to do something. So what we did is, again, via a meetup, we we just heard about multifamily, meaning commercial, right? 5 to 20 unit buildings. We never looked there because all I'd ever lived in was a house. So that's all I ever bought. I thought billionaires bought apartment buildings. I just didn't know any different. But we found that we could. So what we did is we did 1031 exchanges, and we sold that Norris Drive house for 260 something. And then we bought a 5-unit building for 220 something.
Wow.
Here's not only did we save 40 grand, but the rent was triple.
Wow.
So I'm no idiot. When something works, I go, some is good, more is better. So we sold, or again exchanged, all of those first 8 houses at what turned out to be ridiculous prices, and we moved into apartment buildings. So we went from 8 to 80 doors. Our cash flow exploded. And when the crash happened, again, we'll call it July of 07, we were sitting in multifamily properties, and the crash was mainly in housing. So we escaped just fine. Our cash flow went up. Sure, our balance sheet went down because everything went lower. But again, we had commercial financing. It was fixed. It didn't matter, right? We don't live on our balance sheet. We live on our income statement. So we survived, and then that allowed us to thrive because we didn't lose anything. We weren't trying to rob Peter to pay Paul. Everything cash flowed really well. So
Wow.
we got ultra aggressive in the crash.
Wow. So just to sum that up, you were super active in 2006,
Mhm.
not knowing that a crash was coming, but you
No.
saw the red flags of the affordability index.
Yeah, all I could say is, all I knew for certain is I couldn't make a 9th house work, and I had to do something else. On a lark, I said, okay, let's sell this house, the first one we ever bought, and buy this 5-unit building, which I'd seen. That worked out so well. I'm like, okay, let's try that again. Let's take the second one we bought, 1031 exchange that, and we went into 10 units, and then we sold 2 and bought an 18. And yeah, I was not predicting a crash. I just knew the only thing I knew for certain is I couldn't buy a 9th house because I wasn't going to do one of those teaser loans, those 2 and 28s or whatever they were, liar loans. I couldn't fundamentally buy a 9th house and feel good about it, and I wasn't done. Those are the 2 things I could say clearly. Did I know a crash was coming? No. Did I know it was going to be a depression? No. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and lie. I have no idea. But when it came, we were in the right asset class for sure.
That's awesome. So today you have over 180. You know the exact number?
I don't.
Yeah, that's okay. I was just curious.
187, I think,
Yeah.
the last time I counted.
And so that's 187 doors.
Doors, yes.
And how many of those 187 doors would you say are single family versus multifamily?
I would say there's likely 35 houses. There's probably 40 units in the kind of 2 through 4, so duplexes through fourplexes, which are still lent as residential, which would leave 100 or so doors over 5 units and above.
Okay. And what's the largest one that you own?
18.
18. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So going back, you were, I don't want to say lucky, I'll say blessed that you turned that corner before 2007.
Yes. You call it luck. It's okay.
Okay.
I don't mind.
Let's just say 2019 right now.
Yep.
Where do you see the market, not even just nationally, but especially maybe in your own backyard?
That's a great question. I wish more people would ask it because I think there's a general impression that real estate is about to crash.
Mm-hmm.
I hear it all the time, and the volume and frequency is going up. I think the sentiment is accurate, but what they're declaring or thinking is going to happen is wrong, and probably wrong spectacularly. So let me explain. And I only can say this with my hindsight. In 2006 and 7, everybody was flipping houses. I remember vividly people in Fresno buying contracts on houses that were yet to be built.
Okay.
And those contracts would sometimes flip 2 or 3 times. Each person selling the contract, house not built yet, would make 20 grand. Right? It happened.
Wow.
What I see happening today is something similar, but it's not in the housing, because I think the residential lending landscape is vastly different today. 30-year loans, real docs. I just don't see the same insanity. Mm-hmm. Where I see insanity, and more importantly, the herd, which is what scares me, is people going after the notion that bigger is better. I can't tell you how many times I hear people say, I want my first investment to be a 20-unit apartment building. Mm. I want my first investment to be a 40-unit apartment building. I want to be a limited partner in a syndication of 400 units. And as someone who's owned some of that stuff, I can promise you that's not going to end well. The volume, just the simple math, the number of units available in multifamily is a fraction of what's ever available in single-family homes. Unfortunately, we are getting the herd mentality, going after bigger isn't better. Bigger is better, and we've squeezed out all of the juice and then some. So my prediction is in 5 to 7 years, when a lot of these LPs and these syndications come up to reset, they're not going to be able to refi for what they think they're going to. Limited partners either going to have to keep their money in longer, or they're going to have to take a haircut. And it's because people are pricing multifamily for perfection. I've actually done some math on available properties in Fresno today that shows for the first time in 15 years, housing is better than a 10-unit apartment building. Because the prices, the cap rates, whatever you want to call it, prices up, cap rates down, people are pricing them so much for perfection, there's no money there. There's just none. And unfortunately, if I hear bigger is better one more time, I'm going to scream.
Are you struggling to find deals? Are you spending hours of time networking, knocking on doors, cold calling, and feeling like you're chasing your tail trying to just get one frickin' deal? I interviewed over 100 real estate investors in 6 months, and they all said the same thing to me. The toughest part about this business is finding the deal. So my question to you is, wouldn't you like deals coming to you? Well, guess what? That's exactly what you can find with RealFlow. RealFlow is a CRM system that automates just about everything for you. From email campaigns, direct mail campaigns, text messaging, and more. Your phone can be ringing right now with prospective sellers if you just utilize RealFlow's awesome technology. Go to fearlessflipping.com/real to get your free 30-day trial started now. That's right, RealFlow wants our Fearless Flipping community to enjoy their platform for absolutely free for 30 days. Go to fearlessflipping.com/real right now to try it out. fearlessflipping.com/real. So this is the exact opposite of like a guy like Grant Cardone.
Oh, it's exactly opposite.
Exactly opposite. So, a lot of people are going to be listening to this who also listen to Grant Cardone, like myself.
Sure, I listen to him as well.
And so, I think there's so much out there of, there's this idea, then there's this idea, and there's this idea. But it sounds like you've done some research.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any sort of like way to back? No, I'm not putting you on the spot. I'm just curious. Do you have a way to like back that up?
Yeah, well, I did a video that you mentioned earlier on one rental at a time. I compared a single family home with a fourplex with a 5-unit or a 10-unit building.
Okay.
And I just did the math. And I took actuals, right? Because I own this stuff. And the fact is today, and some of the things that people don't understand, I mean, let's just ask this. Let's ask you and see how you respond. What do you think the average tenure is of somebody living in a house, like a rental?
Oh, man. Average 5 years?
So in my portfolio, when I have 15 years of history, it's 8 years, just over 8 years.
Okay.
What do you think the average tenure is in an apartment building?
1 to 2.
It's 2.5 years.
Yeah.
So if you really know this business, you make your money as a landlord by controlling your turns. Because every time you have a turn, you're going to at least lose that month, and you may lose that year, depending on how bad it is. So if you're buying assets that produce roughly the same income, but you're betting on an asset that has 4 times as many turns, you're going to get caught. And then the other thing that's happening is if I hear more about a B-class value add property, which is what Grant Cardone talks about, I'm going to scream again, because everybody's B is changing, right? What's a B today was a C yesterday, and what was a B 3 years ago is a D today. And it's just changing. And again, I think what Grant Cardone is doing, because I've listened to him for a long time, I think what he did early is genius, right? What anybody who was doing apartment syndications 5 years ago is a flippin' genius. They were getting cheap debt and coming out of a recession into a job market where unemployment's now under 4% for a long time. It will never, ever be this good again. But this is not the time to buy, right? This is the time to be selling, right? I've actually taken a couple of my larger buildings and put them on the market 30% above what I think they're worth, and 2 of the 3 are in contract. I'll take the money and buy houses. It's fine.
Time to sell multifamily or?
Multifamily.
Okay, got it. So are you saying it's now time to buy single family?
Without a question.
Okay.
If I was, again, I'm doing it, right? I'm still adding to my portfolio. I'm adding residential stuff, 1s through 4s, because there are too many people chasing too few opportunities. At any one time, if again we talk about Fresno, there's probably 3,000 listings in what we'll call residential, which are singles through 4s, and there's probably 150 multis, right? 5 and above. But if there's 1,000 people looking at the 150 and there's 1,000 people looking at homes, guess where the opportunity is for finding that nugget? It's not in multis.
Okay. So when it comes to the approach now, it sounds to me like go single family. Now, let's go back to 2006, 2007.
Sure.
Let's say that was your approach and this market crash hit and you've got 15 single family homes. What are you doing in that situation? Are you expecting that same cash flow, or are you expecting just to be able to pay the mortgage? I just want to hear
if we go back to so that's a great question. I've thought about that a lot. I've said, what would happen if we didn't go to that one meetup where that one guy talked about apartment buildings? We would have been stuck with 8. I'm fairly confident we wouldn't have bought the 9th because my logical brain wouldn't have let me manipulate Excel to make cash flow. But I'd still be working because I couldn't live on 8. Even if the 8 properties were free and clear, I couldn't have retired, right? I live in the Silicon Valley. It's pretty expensive. It just wouldn't have happened. So I'd still be working. I would have considered myself a failure. I may have looked in another market like Texas or something, but I know for certain I wouldn't be retired because I couldn't have got there just on 8 houses.
Okay. Well, all of it, and it seems to me in real estate, it's one of the things that is easy to speculate. It's also one of the things that if you look at the numbers, it's also the easiest not to speculate. But this is one of those topics that just seems like so many people are saying so many different things about. So I want to go back to one thing you said there about working full-time and also just retiring. You have been doing this. You've been building up a real estate portfolio for 15 years while having a full-time job. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so not only did I have a full-time job, it was probably one of the busier ones because I was a traveling software sales guy or sales leader, actually. So what that meant is I owned territories. The smallest territory I had was Mississippi West 15 years ago. That grew to the United States, and ultimately the last decade or so, I owned worldwide responsibilities. So not only would I work a 40 to 60-hour week on the job, I would likely be traveling to 2 or 3 cities somewhere in the world. Usually, the only day I knew I would be home was Saturday, right? Sundays usually was a trip because I had to be somewhere Monday morning because then I had to be somewhere Wednesday and I had to be somewhere Friday. And that could be anywhere. It could have been London, it could be Australia, it could be China, it could be Chile. I mean, it could be really anywhere, right, was my coverage. So not only did I work all these hours, I did all this travel, and yet sheer discipline, focus, execution, I was able to build a real estate portfolio, one rental at a time, buying out of the MLS, never living in Fresno, never even being here when I started. And so it's absolutely possible. You just got to learn your market, understand what a bad, average, good, and great deal are, get really good at that, and then just put in the work.
That's awesome. So, you've mentioned a couple times now with the MLS, there's not, especially with the high competition right now, I would assume probably not just in Fresno, but nationwide, the MLS is not always the easiest place to find things. So do you find that your reputation has led you to more deals at this point?
Well, certainly my network, I would say, so again, I'm doing deals now, right? We're in June. I've probably closed 12 properties this year already, right? Roughly 2 a month. But what would surprise people is, sure, 4 or 5 of those deals came from my network. People calling me saying, hey, we worked together before, or you did this, or you did that. No question. Those probably don't go to others. But more than half the properties I closed so far were still out of the MLS, Multiple Listing Service. Right. And what's really interesting is I paid list price for only one of those 8 properties. One was just mispriced. I actually paid, which I almost never do, I paid $102 for something listed at $99 that I think I can sell for $199. Right, so I paid the extra $3,000. But where I'm going with this is the 7 of the other 8, I paid on average 25% less than what it was listed for in the MLS.
Can you talk about a couple of those? How did you get that?
So again, you just got to pay attention, right? I look every day, usually multiple times a day, and you can see trends in the data. You can see problem listings. So 2 that I bought happened to come from the same seller. They were listed for $129. They were in the 93702 zip code, so a blue-collar neighborhood, great rental neighborhood. They were 2-bedroom, 1 bath, so they miss lots of searches, right? Because people usually look for 3 bedrooms. Why do that, right? So I look for a 2-bedroom. I look for 2 bedrooms over 1,000 square feet because I want to work in a 3rd bedroom, right? So they were listed for $129. They happened to be listed by the same agent on the same day, which told me they might be the same seller. So I called the agent and asked. Sure enough, it was the same seller. It actually was, life happens, right? A father passed away. They were willed or transferred or whatever to his son. His son hadn't been in Fresno in 25 years, lives on the East Coast. I walked through the properties the next day, so I drove up here and walked through them. They were disgusting. So they were worth 129 perfect. They were not going to sell for 129 in the as-is condition. So I ended up, after negotiation, so I tried to buy them for 80. The son was convinced because Zillow told him they were worth 129. So he held on them for 2 weeks and got other lowball offers after people walked through. And I finally called back and said, I'll buy them both for cash, close in 10 days. He wanted a little bit give. So instead of paying 80, I paid 81 just to feel like he got a win. And, I'll spend 20 to 30 grand fixing them up and then sell them for 160 to 170.
That's awesome.
It happens several times a month.
That's awesome. Okay, so we've gone over so much right now. I really want to just narrow it in right now because you've got an amazing portfolio, which we're going to talk about in our next episode, how you built that and some strategies to help you out there if that's your strategy that you want to go for, buy and hold. You're going to learn exactly how to do that in the next episode. But I want to just know what really at this point is driving you.
Helping people, right? So again, I can only talk about our story, right? So through a 15-year journey, 5 years ago, we made enough. We actually banked a year of my wife's salary to prove that we could live on our income without her job. We did because we're conservative. So she's been out for 5 years. I left February 1st of 2018, never to go back. But I say that, and again, we live pretty modestly still, right? We don't have the Ferraris, and we're not all these social media people with all this stupid spending. So we live very modestly. But we also know that our month is covered. So we can do what we want, right? If I want to create content every day and post on YouTube, that's my thing, right? If I want to go to the gym every day, that's my thing. If we go to lunch 6 days a week at least. Just because that's, my wife's a foodie and we like to do stuff like that. So for me at this point, money's covered, right? The whole hierarchy of needs at this point. So now it's trying to find ways to help others. So that's fun.
And you do a good job of that. And you've done a great job of that, of sharing with our Fearless Flipping Nation. So I just want to ask, if someone wants to connect with you, obviously they know about the YouTube channel. Where else can they connect with you?
So everything for me is one rental at a time, right? So onerentalatatime.com. It's a one page. I'm not a very sophisticated guy. It's one page. There is a contact form there if you want to send me an email. The book's on Amazon, One Rental at a Time. YouTube channel is where I post. I have One Rental at a Time Facebook group. I mean, everything's one rental at a time.
And if you get the book and you send Michael a picture of you holding the book, you love to post.
I do.
That.
Another journey started.
Yes. Absolutely. Well, we're hoping to start a lot of journeys just from the listeners that have been able to hear you today. So thank you so much, Michael. Sure. And just remember, everyone, all you fearless flippers out there, it's your time to go out and conquer real estate investing. We'll talk to you later.
If you need a recap of everything you just learned there, make sure to go to fearlessflipping.com/Zuber, Zuber, for all the show notes. And make sure you are checking out later this week when we get inside the head of Michael Zuber on how he has created this 180-door rental portfolio. That's, again, everything has been outside of his backyard. Nothing in his backyard. Everything has been 2.5 hours away. And until recently, from what I understand, rumor has it he's never even spent a night in Fresno. That's pretty amazing. So if you want to learn how to build that kind of buy and hold rental portfolio, you're definitely going to want to check out the next episode. But once again, on those show notes, fearlessflipping.com/Zuber. Go out there, conquer real estate investing, and we will see you next time.